So I think I'm actually live now. Or not. Oh, I may need a little bit of time to queue or whatever it is. Or not. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Or not. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Or not. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Or not. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, don't I? Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link, and you know everything. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. I guess I gotta share the link. Hey, I'm live. Is anybody actually watching? Probably not. The echo. Hey, I'm live. I don't hear it. The echo. Hey, I'm live. I don't hear it. The echo. What about now? Well, okay. Give it 35 seconds, 45 seconds, and let me know if you still hear the echo now. Because I don't know where the heck that's coming from otherwise. Be right back. Oh, that hurt. Literally be right back. That wasn't even a joke. That was literally moments later. Can you hear me now? Is there an echo? Because I don't have a way to hear it. Because I don't have anything to test with. I'm not quite that fancy yet. Haha, beautiful. Welcome. You and I and apparently one other person are listening live. Woohoo! Dynamo Power Hour. Yay. So I'm hijacking down in the valley this week because Edson was like, oh, there's not a whole lot to talk about related to down in the valley. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He is on his way home, which is really funny. It was like 5:30 and I was like, hey, or 5 o'clock. I was like, hey guys, I tweeted out that I was, I had asked earlier this afternoon if people wanted me to do a Q&A session tonight. And I hadn't told him, and I guess he wasn't watching Twitter. I kind of expected him to watch Twitter. And so we were talking about mixer boards and stuff like that we have our own little Facebook chat. And it was really funny because he goes, wait, we're doing Peel tonight? We're doing an episode tonight, a show tonight? And I was like, yeah. So he's now scrambling home. It's pretty funny. So questions. I had 3 or 4 that popped up from Gabe on Twitter, which is pretty cool. Man, my mic is really hot and really live, which is awesome, but at the same time kind of scary, especially when you're the only person here. I applaud Edson for handling everything the way that he does, because that takes a lot of skill and talent. Let's see. So there was, from Gabe, the first question, of course, was about MLS expansion stuff. So let's talk MLS expansion. So today it was announced, and a worst kept secret of Major League Soccer's, existence, I guess, although there have been plenty of others. Today, sorry, hold on 1 second. I'm going to make this better so that it's not quite so, much better. Okay, better for me. So MLS announced today that Nashville is going to be their next Major League Soccer expansion franchise. And what's interesting to me about that is the other cities that are left. I think it puts Sacramento, not that this is a surprise to anybody, but it puts Sacramento kind of as the front runner for the second spot out of the 4 that were the finalists, which the 4 were Sacramento, Nashville, Cincinnati, and Detroit. I never considered Detroit to be a serious contender for one of these spots. So that left really What's up, Gabe? So that left Nashville, Sacramento, and Cincinnati. So I've actually mentioned this to the guys, and we've talked about it before on the Peel, that one of the things we didn't want to see was MLS raid all of the really good, franchises from USL. because USL still needs to be a viable league. It's really important that USL has 2 or 3 top, actually really like more like 3 to 6 top teams that can compete on a year-to-year basis with the lower tier MLS kind of franchises, so to speak. And so Cincinnati is kind of, in my opinion, the USL powerhouse now. They're the ones that, just due to their market, they're going to be the ones that are going to kind of push and be the real push behind USL. And I think USL will market them accordingly. But what that means is that unfortunately Cincinnati's probably not going to get an MLS club, an MLS expansion club. And they're not going to move up to MLS, which basically is how that would work. But what that does mean is probably Sacramento, which is cool because Sacramento is another one of those USL clubs that, in my opinion, has a good base to build upon. I do think Cincinnati's actual fan base is probably stronger at this point, just because of the US Open Cup run in the last couple of years, and how they've been just absolutely, really building that franchise from a USL standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. Maybe top of the class, and is probably better, in my opinion, than 4 or 5 MLS clubs, if not more. So as far as MLS expansion, that's kind of it. Sacramento is probably going to be announced sometime in the next couple of months, I would suspect. That's really it. There's not a whole lot to talk about with MLS expansion. There will be another expansion draft. We just had one for LA FC. We didn't lose anybody in it. Thank you. It's wonderful that we didn't lose anybody. Not that I was really worried, because we protected pretty much everybody that I wanted to protect. And we left a few players available that I thought maybe LAFC might consider. But then it was brought to my attention at one point that if you're LAFC, you're not likely to necessarily try to use a expansion draft slot or spot or pick on a guy like Rico or Beasley, both of who are eligible and actually in MLS free agency right now. So I guess in that regards, we got lucky on the one hand, but I think it was a tactical decision, a strategic decision by Matt Jordan to leave those guys unprotected. They're not really under contract with us at this point, but at the same time, it's still important. It's still good to know that they're testing free agency because they want to test free agency. I really don't think it necessarily comes down to money as much as it does that both of them kind of realize, and I think a couple of the other veterans kind of realize that, in reality, they're probably not going to be full-time starters this year. I think Beasley definitely knows that Remick has pushed him, in my opinion, pushed him to the point where I think Remick deserves more starting time than Beasley. Actually, I don't even think. I know he deserves more starting time than Beasley. And I think, from Rico's standpoint, you're talking Eric Alexander, you're talking, Alex, if Alex comes back, Tomas in the same position, Cabezas and technically in that same position. And I have a very strong opinion, a strong hunch that the Dynamo are also looking at grabbing a 6 or an 8. Probably more an 8 than a 6. But a 6 or an 8 from overseas somewhere. Butters just walked in. He looks all nice, though. He's all dressed up in his nice, work outfit and everything. Although he's untucked shirt. Apparently he had one of those days at work. Everything's working, by the way, no echo.
Sweet.
But I only have one mic hooked up. But I do have the capability for you to hook your mic up. We can hook it up into one of those.
All right. Are you just doing YouTube? All right.
Yeah.
Well, what are you talking about?
Dynamo, and I teased that maybe you would talk a little Down in the Valley, but I also said you were kind of a punk and like we don't have anything to talk about with Down in the Valley.
I wasn't prepared.
And guys, just so you know, I'm actually watching the stream while we're doing this. So I actually see when the stream drops on my end as well. So just so you guys know, you're not the only one seeing the stream drop it, for like a couple seconds here and there. I see it as well. We have really good internet, so I have no freaking clue why that is, other than maybe it's just capping out the thing. All that, you know what? That's probably true. Wouldn't surprise me knowing Edson. Blues fan says Edson knocks out the stream.
Of course, videos.
Yeah, everything, totally, all the time. So before I continue to Gabe's second question, does anybody, mainly you Blues fan, do you have any questions that you'd like to pose for this Q&A session while you have me here and available? And, Edson is off to the side over here and more than happy to answer some questions as well. Oh, Darby, let's not go down that path. I am net neutrality. There are so many things that can be said. We don't need to go too far into this, but I will tell you there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of overreaction to it. I mean, it's not good, but it's also not as bad as people made it out to be. But we'll go into that later, off air, on Twitter. Oh, it was announced today. I'm sure everybody saw because obviously if you're here, you probably follow us on Twitter. But we have re-signed Dylan Remick, which is, in my opinion, probably was the third or fourth thing we needed to do this offseason. So at this point, they're following my checklist, like one right after the next, and it's pretty awesome. $2 per Google search. That's not how that works, Gabe. Don't eat food. It's on the way. Did you not check Twitter?
No.
Oh. We're getting food. That's all you need to know. Should be here shortly. You probably need to listen out for it, actually, now that I think about it, because I can't hear anything with these on. Blues, can you do me a favor? Can you send me, if you have a copy of those comments, or kind of iterate, like kind of explain what he said? Because I did not actually see those comments. I mean, I know they're in negotiations, and I know they're trying to bring him back. They want to bring him back. But I also think, like I said, I think a big part of it is he doesn't want to be in a backup role and primarily as a backup. And I think if he comes back, he's definitely pegged as a backup for next year. But I don't know exactly what he said because I missed that. And, Man, how do you do solo for so long? This is impressive stuff to sit here and realize how hard solo can be when you're just the only person talking. I mean, you have people interacting with you, which is great, but just silence on the other end is just the weirdest thing.
I guess it's just pretty much the interaction.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Part, last week it was all interaction pretty much.
Yeah, which it helps a lot. It really does. Just so you guys know, you guys engaging with us on Twitter and in YouTube chat, it really does make a difference for us. It makes the show go a lot faster. It reminds us of the things that maybe we haven't thought of, to discuss, that kind of thing. And then sometimes you'll hit on a topic or hit on something that we haven't necessarily directly hit on. Like this is a good thing right here that Blues is doing. We'll see. I have time to think about it. I've spoken with Houston. They're being patient. They're giving me time. I appreciate it. That's where I'm at. So I think he's obviously that's exactly what he's saying. I'm thinking about it. He's clearly saying I don't have another offer from another team, in my opinion. But, he's kind of – I can't give you the laptop this time because the camera's right there. But stop it. Sorry. Dog is being annoying. But that's basically what he's saying is I really don't have another offer. I'm waiting to see if another offer comes in. They want to negotiate with me. I'm just kind of being patient. He might also be, he did say that he was going to consider maybe possibly retiring this year. So it is a possibility he's thinking about that as well. And that may be on his plate of things to figure out and decide what he wants to do. As far as do I think he's willing to swallow his pride to come back here? Oh, man. That's a loaded question if there ever was one. Beasley, anybody who's an athlete, I think athletes in general, they're, especially your quote-unquote star athletes, your big-name athletes, they're going to always have tremendous egos and tremendous amount of pride, not only in what they do, but in what they've done. And, that's a big deal for him to come back as a backup because it's basically him saying, you know what, I'm not able to perform at the level that I was before. We all know that to be the case, but he may not be willing to accept that. In the history, let's look aside soccer, look at football, look at baseball. There have been players that have played well beyond their prime that you could see a severe decline in their performance, Eli Manning. And yet they continue to try to push themselves to continue to play, even though really they probably shouldn't. And then the question, do I think he'll wait out until the last month of the offseason to decide like he did last year? Yes, I absolutely do. Rico will do the same thing. That's a veteran move called I don't want to – actually, they'll probably wait until mid-preseason. That's called I don't want to have to be part of training camp and part of preseason and that sort of thing. When they can avoid it, that's what they're going to want to do. Oh, man, Rico coming back. That's a good question, Henry. I want to say he's coming back just from a fan standpoint, from like us, like me as a fan. I want him to come back just because he's Dynamo. He's orange through and through. But I think he does get an offer from somewhere else. I mean, he is a decent quality center mid. And he may get an offer from a team that has more money to offer in terms of a depth player that can offer a depth player a little bit more money. So I don't think he's coming back here. We're not going to get anything in exchange for him, obviously, because he's a free agent. But that money, if he doesn't come back here, that will be used to fill up. Like I said, I mean, I have a very good feeling that we are targeting a number 8 somewhere along the way as a true center mid style player to play behind Tomas and above Cabezas, kind of be that center of the spine, if you will. But I do think he's headed elsewhere. I think probably the highest probable places he might go, Atlanta can probably pick him up cheap because it's where he's from. LAFC, just because they have tons of allocation money and TAM and GAM, so they can drive those down. Possibly, here's one nobody's really considering. Possibly Columbus. That's what, dude. Gabe, if we could get Casemiro, I would lose my crap like you would not believe. The perfect player for that role, but obviously way outside our price range. Although, speaking of price range, I did learn something this week from Matt Jordan's interview with Glenn Davis, and I was not expecting to hear this. The Dynamo so we know this year they're adding an additional 2.8 million in TAM, targeted allocation money. The Dynamo actually plan and intend to use that. I did not foresee that coming because and not only are they intending to use that, they're intending to use that on a new player, not on an existing player. That caught me off guard because everything that I've heard up until really the tail end of this season, 2017 season, and really even into the playoffs, is that this ownership, this club ownership, was going to continue to be kind of tight on the wallet and not really open up the purse strings. But what I'm hearing now and what I'm starting to find out is that this club is willing to. Oh, I love the doorbell. This is so fantastic. The best thing. It's on card. Just sign for it. Tip should already be on there. But it's I'm totally floored because the entire mentality has changed. It's like these guys seeing the front office and the ownership seeing that that hey, positive wins and playing well and having players that are top players in the league, that that gets butts and seats, that gets fans excited, that you felt that energy in that last game against Seattle here at home. Yeah, we got sushi tonight, by the way. Sushi and fried rice, I think, was the other thing that I got. So I can't tell whether he's pleased or whether he's kind of like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know what you didn't specify. You didn't give me anything you wanted. So, but yeah, I back to that. I mean, it's. Henry, you know what? I don't think they spend all that money on just one single player, right, or one single position. I think the way that this team needs to – he'll be back here in a minute, I promise. Gabe says he needs to see your face. That was his exact words. He's coming. He's chowing down on – are you really hungry? Is that what it is?
Well, I found a piece of beef.
Oh, no, yeah, I got the beef for you.
Okay.
I intentionally got that one.
What's up?
Still can't see you. Hold on.
Well,
See, look, I got it on the rotator thingy, so they'll see you here in a second.
Well, this thing rotates too.
Oh, look at there. we have a lazy Susan in the middle of our dining room table. Anyways, that's beside the point. Yes, but to go back to Henry's question, as far as what position, like I said, I don't think it's one position. I think maybe 2 or 3 positions. I think maybe we find a young cornerback, maybe an outside back, maybe right back, and possibly I'll also spend on a number 8. We're going to have some salary budget available to spend on players. I mean, look at what Matt Jordan did last offseason. He got Machado and he got Kyoto on free transfers. He got Elise on a loan, Cabezas on a loan, and this offseason he sealed those deals so that they're now permanent players. He got Leonardo in the re-entry draft. Now, obviously, the re-entry draft we didn't go for this year because, really, in my opinion, there weren't players like there were last year that were available that were worth going after. And I think also there's an understanding from the club that you have to be real careful, right? Those players in the re-entry draft, 9 times out of 10, they're either very oft-injured players, Leonardo, or they are players that are young and inexperienced and maybe just need a break like a Remick. But there's also very often players that have had major injuries and are coming back from a major injury. AJD would be a good example of one of those. So were there possibilities there? Yes. Were they going to make a big difference in our overall lineup? Not in my opinion. And I think that I think there's probably 1 or 2 more MLS veteran players that we will sign before the end of the offseason, possibly even into January sometime. But yeah, so the 3 main positions I feel like we need upgrades. Again, number 8, which is your true center mid. What's up, Raphael? So number 8, your true center mid, your center back, and then, a young center back to pair with Machado for 1 to 2 more seasons, and then you find a replacement for Machado. And then a right back or left back, somebody who can play both positions would be great, as kind of a swap for Remick, but at the same time, if we can get just somebody who's really good at right back, that would be great as well. And I'm looking for my outside backs. I'm not looking for necessarily straight defenders. I'm looking for players that are willing to push high up the pitch and willing to cross that ball into the box, willing to make the overlapping runs, that sort of thing. All right, so Henry asked, speaking of AJ, any insight on his possible return? Absolutely nothing. Silence to me is actually probably a good thing because if there wasn't silence, then he would probably be signed to another team, because he does have the right to go sign with another team. I believe he's a free agent actually, if I'm not mistaken. So no word is probably good word at this point. Gabe, he has regressed tremendously this year with Newcastle, and I'm not entirely sure I would even take him. Yedlin. Yedlin, according to some announcers over in the English Premier League, which is really grates on my nerves to hear it pronounced Yedlin, because it's Yedlin. Get out of here with that crap. And then so Raphael asked about Tyler Derrick. This is what I can tell you so far. There's no contract offer on the table, to my knowledge. They have talked to him about possibilities, but no progress has been made on anything. My suspicion is that they're requesting him to do certain things this offseason to take care of the charges, to deal with, he already dumped the girlfriend, but to kind of deal with his personal problems, those sorts of things. Reassurances for the club that that's not going to become an issue again or not going to be an issue again, that sort of thing. So I think those things probably have to take place. I think Tyler Derrick may be one of those guys that we see that kind of, and the NFL is a perfect example of this, right? You get these quarterbacks that either retire or they don't get picked up by a team and they're a backup, perennial backup or whatever. Texans are a good example of this. TJ Yates is sitting on his couch and gets a phone call because the Texans have lost 4 quarterbacks to injuries. And so, I feel like Tyler Derrick is probably going to be kind of one of those players that just ends up sitting on the couch, until he's absolutely needed. Along the same lines, asking about Tyler Derrick, there's been on Twitter some talk recently, and I know that Edson will get a kick out of this, about Iker Casillas, yes, Iker, coming to Houston. There's zero chance of that happening. But I will say this. If that were to happen, I would absolutely buy a Casillas jersey. Like, there would be no doubt in my mind that would be the kit I would buy this year. Yeah. He is a fantastic goalkeeper, even at his advanced age, and he would be better than Willis, like, even immediately. There's not even a question. Osvaldo Alanis. Osvaldo Alanis. Yes, who that? Who that?
That is actually
Gabe told me to ask you.
Okay. Yeah.
Who that?
Okay. All right. Okay.
We really need to hook you up a mic. I mean, you got to stand in there and everything, and we got the plug for it. And
Yeah, but no phantom power. That's the problem.
oh, right. Yeah. Oh,
So
well.
who asked about Alanis?
Gabe asked about it. Gabe did.
Okay. Osvaldo Alanis. Okay. So basically, what's going on with Osvaldo?
Just talking to it.
All right, so basically what's going on with Osvaldo Alanis, otherwise known as the Mexican Mats Hummels, but mostly because they look so alike, is that he, from what I know, is that he had asked for a raise from Guadalajara, and Guadalajara denied, and have now actually frozen him. They didn't take him. They didn't want him in practices. They didn't want him going into pretemporada. And so it's this whole problem with we call the Pacto de Caballeros, and so now the Players Federation or the Players Union in Mexico is starting to take matters into their hands as far as this. But right now there's rumors that Monterrey might want to get him, but right now I think they're kind of just not wanting to do anything with him, kind of as retaliation for asking for that raise.
Good stuff. There you have it for our intrepid sideline reporter. No, I'm just kidding. I'm pretty sold on Cabezas. I wouldn't mind. There's a lot of players out there. I wouldn't mind an 8 I wouldn't even mind a 6 to pair next to Cabezas if it can be a 6 that can be kind of a box-to-box 6. But I still think we need that center of the park kind of guy to be that pivot point between everybody. Alexander can do that. Eric Alexander can do that, and he was re-signed as well. Eric Alexander can do that, and he could do it adequately, but I'm not content next year with just adequate. If this club is willing to spend money, I want better than adequate. I want guys that are top, maybe not necessarily elite top level players, but at least good enough to compete with the top in MLS. And Cabezas is great, but if we can get one more player to kind of elevate us to the next level, I can't argue with it. I mean, even with Cabezas being my MVP of the season for the Dynamo, any upgrade is a good upgrade, right? I mean, that's kind of how that works, and from what I hear, from what I'm told. Okay. We already talked about that. You're a little late. Sorry, man. That was the first thing we talked about. But like I said earlier, to kind of rehash that, since we've had a couple of people come in since then. So Nashville was awarded today, as of today, officially awarded an MLS expansion franchise. Or MLS expansion slot. I don't even know what they call that. Slot, yeah. And they're one of two that are going to get awarded within the next month or two. And the second one probably is going to be Sacramento. We had talked about this before, Edson. You'll remember on one of the previous episodes where we were discussing, on the one hand, I want to see Cincinnati get an expansion franchise because they deserve it. On the other hand, USL needs some top markets to really be their kind of premier markets, their top elite clubs. And I feel like Cincinnati is that marketable club, that marketable franchise, that marketable team where they can do that with Cincinnati. I just don't feel like necessarily Sacramento could quite be on that same level. I do think Sacramento will be just fine as a lower level, lower tier MLS franchise, but I just think Cincinnati is one of those clubs that USL needs to be, a league leader club type thing where they're leading not only in players and in terms of championships and that sort of thing, but also leading in terms of quality on the pitch, quality off the pitch, marketing, just the whole organization is well run, and I think there's a desire there from USL to keep that within USL because they need it to survive themselves. So that's what we discussed earlier.
Do you believe that if the USL loses Cincinnati, do you think San Antonio might be the next best?
So if Edson asks if USL were to lose Cincinnati, let's say that Cincinnati is the one to be selected. Does that elevate San Antonio to being that next USL top-tier program or club? And I do think that is a possibility. I think they're on par with Sacramento. I think they're on par with help me out here. I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my head right now. I just blanked. Louisville's Louisville's another good one. There's one out in Florida?
The Rowdies, Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is another good example too. We'll get there in a second, Gabe. But those are in my opinion, those are kind of the front runners. They may not necessarily be your league leaders year over year, but they're your teams and your clubs that are going to draw interest. They're going to be your teams and clubs that, they're the ones making headlines here and there every once in a while. They're the ones that can help drive the league to continue to be successful. Yeah, San Antonio is not going to get into Major League Soccer. If Columbus does, in fact, move the Crew to Austin, then there is zero chance that San Antonio gets an MLS franchise, MLS expansion slot. And just to clarify why that is, Henry, just so you know, or well, actually you probably know, but for anybody who doesn't know, the reason for that is MLS had years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, said that they were never going to allow or not going to allow Texas to have 4 MLS clubs, MLS franchises. And so if Columbus was to move to Austin, that would pretty much seal San Antonio's fate as a permanent USL fixture, at least under Don Garber. Then Brian Lockridge asks, are both Brian and Darby in here? Brian asks, what's the usual timeline from announcing an expansion club and then their first season? Usually it's roughly 4 years, sometimes 2 to 4 years. It just depends. I think the Nashville one is scheduled for 2021, 2020 maybe. 2021. It's either 2020. It's either 2020 or 2021. So that's 2 years, 3 years. Somewhere in there, 2 to 4 years roughly is the timetable for it. And they'll start really this season before really building up and signing players and everything. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. They'll start signing players to the top tier echelon players. Like LAFC signed Vela last year, and then they'll bring over a coach, Bob Bradley. Type thing, and then they'll continue pulling players from various sources and things like that. So they'll really start they'll start half a season before they actually, or really a full season before they even really start their MLS actual franchise season.
And speaking of Vela, he had his last game at Real.
I saw that, and he scored a goal,
Yeah.
which was pretty awesome. So yeah, Vela had his final game at Real Sociedad, and he scored a goal for them in his final match there, which is pretty awesome to see. Boy, you were just hitting those tortillas like they're going out of style, man. Did you not eat lunch?
Not really. Well, I did, but that was at 11.
Oh, well, I guess it's a little late for that, isn't it? All right, anyways. I'm just watching him literally just hop between the stove, flipping tortillas over there, and just he's creating Korean fusion tacos over here. It's pretty funny because I'm kind of getting hungry now watching him. Anyways, so Blues fan asks, how do you feel about the 2:30 p.m. kickoff for the season opener? It's March 3rd for our season opener here in Houston against DC United. No, Atlanta United. Sorry. It's I said this on Twitter. I suspect the reason why that kickoff is when it is because that match is going to be on Univision. Because let's face it, those two franchises are 2 of your larger Hispanic markets. LAFC might have been a little bit bigger on that, but I think Atlanta United, just the players on Atlanta United and the players on the Dynamo are going to pull enough for both of them to be fine. It's March. I think it'll still be cool. I think it'll be 70 to 80 something. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we'll hit 90s by March 3rd. I think we'll still be relatively comfortable. So I'm totally okay with that one. Actually, few times where I'm actually okay with a midday game, a midday match. And maybe, hopefully, let's look at it this way. Gabe, as of right now, yes, that is what I've been told. But the 2:30 kickoff, right? Or I guess it's 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. The 2:30 kickoff. There is zero excuse on a Saturday in March 3rd, no less. There's no football. There's no basketball at that point. Everything is done sports-wise except for baseball. So we should see a really good turnout for a season opener against Atlanta. So my hope is that by doing it earlier in the day, that we'll actually have a better turnout than a 7 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday or whatever. So I'm hopeful. We'll see, I guess, but make a day of it, I guess. Cube did a really good job hosting our games this year, broadcasting the games, the matches. They did a really good job. Their quality was a lot better than I anticipated and a lot better than I expected. You could tell that they definitely borrowed from a lot of what Root Sports and CSN Houston did, which is good because it was good quality there as well. And also, it's nice for them to be on local TV so that, as long as you're local, you can actually get to catch the games. And then the advantage is by them being on Cube, on MLS Live, they only get blacked out in the Houston area. They don't get blacked out outside of Houston on MLS Live. So people like Andres can actually get it in Austin and, stuff like that. Edson can get it at home in the Valley. Yeah, no, it should be. It's going to continue to be the same setup next year for MLS Live, as long as you're not in an area that can quote unquote get the cube. Then you'll be fine with MLS Live. And if not, I got tricks. Just hit me up, Brian, on Twitter. I got tricks to get you around that. That's not a problem. I got ways, man. I got ways. All right, hit me up with some more questions, y'all. This is going really good. I'm actually really surprised. Not surprised. I'm really pleased. Kind of surprised, too. But really pleased. I'm not a hacker. No, sir. I'm not a hacker. I do not hack. That is not true. I don't know what Edson has told you guys, but I am not a hacker. Just because I work on the internet does not make me a hacker, okay? It's not how that works. Henry, I do believe we will see more Kyoto and Elise on the field at the same time next season. I think a lot of that really was due to Honduras and how hard they pushed their players and World Cup qualifying last year and that sort of thing as well. So, and Gold Cup. So there's no Gold Cup. There's no World Cup qualifiers. I mean, there's a couple of friendlies, but that's really it. I mean, they're not leaving for World Cup, so we'll take a 2-week break around World Cup, I'm sure, but it won't be as bad. Prefer Manotas up top with them. I actually am okay with the rotation with Kubo and Morrow. I think the rotation pushes Morrow. My hope is that Wilmer understands that Kubo needs some sort of pressure and motivation. We talked about that 2 weeks ago with Victor. About how Kubo, once he no longer had the motivation of the Gold Cup in front of him, he really regressed in terms of his ability and flash on the field. It's like he just really didn't care after Gold Cup was over. It was like he is definitely more country over club, and I think that's fair to say with Kubo. Blues fan, who was in the CONCACAF Best 11? Well, that was Elise, and other than that, I don't know. I know I could pull it up, or I can have Edson pull it up. I don't really think it's that important. Who? Oh, yeah, for the women's. Yeah, Carly Lloyd got it. Yeah. Julie Ertz was on there, too. I saw a couple of the guys, but I can't remember who they are now off the top of my head, which I feel really bad because I should.
I know for one it was Keylor Navas.
Yeah, Navas. But that wasn't a surprise at all.
Yeah. Because he won overall.
So Henry asked about the rumor. I meant to bring this up last week. There's a rumor going around about Mauro Manotas being sold to or transferred to a club in South America. You can put that one.
I think it was.
You can put that to rest. Yeah, that sounds right. You could put that to rest. He ain't leaving. Trust me, he's not going anywhere. Not this year. He might next year, but this year he's not going anywhere. Gabe, what's more likely, Dynamo having a bigger supporter section than Portland or Houston spending like Atlanta? Oh, man.
Houston spending like Atlanta.
What's more likely? Yes, I'm going to completely agree with that. I do agree with that wholeheartely. Portland has a phenomenal Timbers Army section. It's ridiculous how big that group is and how many diehards they have that are part of that group.
Yeah.
What they do well is it's a family atmosphere for that group in terms of they're a family. Yeah. There's no dissension in their ranks. They deal when something comes up and somebody disagrees with somebody, they deal with it. They don't ignore it. And there's a history with the Houston supporters groups that says that's not going to happen anytime soon, if ever. And it's a shame because, there's a lot of possibilities there. Do you want to lower his crate covers so that he can't see us? Maybe just take him out and let him go for a walk. Sorry, that's our dog, and he's being annoying, as I said earlier. He doesn't understand when to be quiet. He just doesn't. He just, I don't know. He has to be part of the podcast. That must be what it is. Unfortunately, he likes to pull on things, and that would be bad. So he's gonna just stay there and just be sad and whiny, or he could bark at me. Shush. All right. Other questions. I know there's got to be more questions. Oh, anyways, so Portland, right? They've got this really great supporters group thing. And like I said, there's a history with our Houston supporters group. So I've got the CONCACAF Best 11 right here. Mejor 11, once masculino. Masculino, yeah. Keylor Navas for goalkeeper. Defenders, Christian Gamboa, Hector Moreno, Kendall Waston, Roman Torres, which is no surprise. Midfielders, Brian Ruiz. Christian Pulisic. If anybody had picked otherwise, I would have punched him in the face. Hector Herrera. Vilda Donald Guerrier from Haiti. That's interesting. And, he played for Haiti.
He plays in Azerbaijan, I believe.
Yeah. He does. Yeah, that's what that is. Karabag. And then your forwards are Elise and Lozano. Lozano from Mexico. Lozano is really, in my opinion, a good pick, actually, for that. I think there are other good forwards, but I'm going to say this. I think Josie feels slighted by that, though. He just won MLS Cup. He just won the Canadian Cup, whatever that is.
But he can't compare MLS to playing in the Eredivisie.
No, absolutely. Well, man, Eredivisie. I argue that absolutely. It's a different league,
but
right? MLS has a bet
of it being in Europe.
Well, but see, here's the thing, right? So, okay, this is a great discussion. You guys are gonna love this. So, Eredivisie, the problem there, they have no defense in that league. It is all offense. Mm-hmm. MLS is almost the virtual opposite, right? We are very defensive focused and very little offensive focused for the most part.
I believe we had
look at the talent pools.
That day we had we hosted the conference final. We had to talk about that, and we said that the MLS.
We're starting to focus more on the offensive. We're starting to.
No. We had said that it is very offensive.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. I actually came out and said the league is still more defensive than it is offensive. It's been a slow transition we've been going through. Blues fan makes a very good point. Josie did tear up the Eredivisie when he was there.
Well, true.
So, all things being equal, he's not doing it here. So what's the difference? It's the league. Yeah. Anyways, but that's, that is what it is. That's a discussion for this offseason, hopefully at some point as well. I'd really like to have. I will tell you guys that we're working on getting some new equipment for some stuff. I just ordered a new mixer board with more channels and stuff, so we're hoping to do that round table sometime in January. So Blues fan mentions Chris Seitz, the Dallas goalkeeper that is now a Houston goalkeeper. Earlier this week, when it was announced that he had been signed by he had been. Did we trade for Seitz or did we sign him? I thought we traded a pick, like a conditional, like a second round pick or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We traded like Gam or Tam or some really minimal amount. I think. I don't know. Someone correct me on YouTube chat. Whatever we did, regardless, Chris Seitz is a starting caliber goalkeeper. He really is. He was a free agent. Okay, so free agent. You're right. So we didn't trade anything, which is even better in my opinion because I would have been willing to trade an asset for him. He needs to go out, or he needs water. Just put him on the leash and let him get some water. But don't let him out without the leash on because he'll tear everything up. But Chris Seitz had a bunch of Dallas fans giving him flack. Well, I say a bunch, like 2 or 3 Dallas fans giving him a lot of flack and a lot of just, you sucked and now you're a traitor because you're going to Houston. Like, I'm sorry, Houston offered him more money. Hi.
Yeah, come here.
Oh, God. It's okay. It's just power. I don't need power, right? I'm good. But they were literally like cussing him out just left and right. Really bad stuff on Instagram or on Twitter. And his reply was perfect. His reply literally said, hey, buddy, just go ahead and click that unfollow button right now. And I was like, Seitz, I am sold. I am completely sold. That is awesome. Because it was subtle, but it was, hey, dude, I'm now with Houston. You don't get to be that way. Like, it's just how it is. Welcome to the business of soccer and the business of sports. But it was the perfect response. It was very professional, but at the same time, it was like, dude, that is completely uncalled for. And I will now defend Seitz until, as long as he doesn't F up in games and in matches. I mean, he's going to have a couple of blunders, and I'm okay with that. What I don't want to see are blunders that he's not growing from or not learning from. And I think we will see him adjust over the season. I do think he's going to push Willis for starting time, and I think Seitz being signed tells you what you need to know about Derek, going back to Derek. As far as Willis coming back, they're still – take him for a walk. Like, seriously, he probably needs to go pee or something. Hopefully not on the futon because that would be bad. But I think Seitz signing and the Dynamo making that offer tells you what you need to know about Derek. I think the fact that there will be other keepers available if Willis decides to go somewhere else is fine. Willis is a decent goalkeeper, but I think Seitz would push him to start, so I'm okay with that. Henry, you hit the nail right on the head. Arturo Alvarez is the El Salvador captain. He's their team leader. But my favorite part of that signing is where he plays and how he plays. He is a player that plays similar to Vicente. He's not going to necessarily do quite as much as Vicente does, but he's a very smart, very intelligent football player on the pitch. He understands how to take defenders on, and he will take defenders on. He can play wing. He can play central. He can pass. He can shoot. I don't expect him to necessarily be a starter, but I think he plays that Vicente Sanchez role if Vicente doesn't come back. And if Vicente comes back, then, we have 2 guys to play that backup sub-depth role, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Arturo Alvarez, and I mentioned this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, his trading for him, it's a great way to get the El Salvadoran fan base more integrated into the Dynamo culture, and I hope that we see more of the El Salvadorans come out and support the club, because I think there's definitely a good chance for a connection there to be made for sure. And Blues, you're exactly right. They've been talking about it. I mean, yes, there are some out there, Blues. Shut up. But there's what I'm trying to say, and obviously not doing an eloquent enough job, is that there's still a large part of that fan base that isn't connected to the Dynamo, aren't fans of the Dynamo specifically, and I see the Arturo Alvarez trade as an opportunity for that to grow bigger and become better. As far as Cabrera's willingness to use every roster position with leaving very little for complacency, that's been his goal. That's been Jordan's goal since day one, is to create competition at every position. They really keyed on that in their press conference to end the season, that they wanted to continue that into this year. So I think we will see that. If there are veterans that come back from the Dynamo from last year, they're going to be pushed at every position. I think that's why we see more depth signings at winger. I think that's why we see a couple more center back come in. I think that's why you see at least one or two more depth signing at outside back. I think that's why you see, some center mids come in that are depth players as well. And then, Morrow and Kubo are going to fight for it. That's why I'm pretty certain that Kubo's not leaving, and I'm okay with that because they're going to push each other. And if Kubo isn't, if Kubo's not showing up and not pushing, Wilmer's gonna know, and he's going to make a change. That's awesome, Henry. I'm glad to hear that. Henry points out that his family goes to games. At least 6 people date. This year it'll be more like 10 of us. So with flags and everything, and that's the key, right? When you get a player that the fan base from a national team can connect with on your team, locally, it energizes that part of the fan base. And if he comes and look at Vicente, right? Vicente scores that goal in front of the hometown crowd, and there were fans before that chanting for him. He scores that goal, and what does he do? He comes over to those fans and he acknowledges those fans, after he scored the goal during his celebration. That to me is incredible, and it just shows Vicente understands it as well. There's a market here that's untapped that he can tap into, that the Dynamo can tap into, and it's a fan base that frankly is rabid and wild, and they love their players. They love their stars. They love their captains. They love the players that bleed sweat and cry on the pitch and leave it all out there because you know what? They have that same passion in the stands that the players do on the pitch, and there's just something about that if the Dynamo can really start tapping into that, I guarantee you that atmosphere at BBVA is about to skyrocket in the best way possible. Hopefully not with beer cans and stuff being thrown on the pitch. I'm going to plug my laptop in. Give me just 1 second. Stupid dog. Well, no, it won't be necessarily guaranteed, but I just feel like if the club markets and does everything right around it, and you can tell they're starting to, if they really start to do that, if they start to build around that and start to make that a little bit more of a focus, which is what Brenner wants them to do, then I really do feel like, the sky is the limit in terms of what this club can become from a fan, from the fan. El Batallon is there for a reason, right? And, if El Batallon can tap into it too, that's all, again, you're just building up that energy, that atmosphere that this club really could use. They didn't have it last year for a majority of the season. And then look at the Seattle match. Yeah, we sucked. We looked terrible, but that atmosphere was there. Excuse me. Exactly, right? So, yeah, Blues fan says, these are the signings the front office needed to make. That's exactly my point, and this has been building for a while. This is exactly what the front office needed to do. They needed to sign these types of players, Elise, Cabezas, Kyoto, Machado. They needed to start tapping into Central America, South America, the Latin America, Hispanic, the Hispanic communities around here, and really start building around that. Because there's such an opportunity there, right, to build that part of the fan base tremendously more. And so I don't even think you need to open it up. Just walk over there with that bag and he will go in there. He knows. We've trained him very well on which treats he can get when he's in his crate. It's fantastic. And that's what I said, right? Fans in general, whether it's South America or Central America in terms of the Hispanic base, they are diehards for their players. If you're someone who has shown your passion on the pitch for them, it's amazing how that translates into the fan base. A free agent player, man, I've looked at the free agent list and I'm not all that impressed with it, to be honest with you. There's a couple of players on that list, like 2, that I might be willing to go after, but there's a player that's currently unsigned that I keep wanting to get because he's an outside back in Wijnaldum. His brother plays overseas for Liverpool, but he's a right back, and he's young. He's quick. He's pacey. He can overlap in terms of the offense. So, you know, in my opinion, that's the perfect depth signing. Bring him in as a depth player. If you do get AJ back, that's great. Use him in rotation. That gives AJ a chance to kind of, you know, slowly build. Wijnaldum is not on a big contract, was not on a big contract last year, shouldn't be on one this year. Yes, he's an international. Yes, it's an international slot, which does hurt a little bit. But at the same time, it's an opportunity there for a player that, in my opinion, is better than he showed last year. And I think Wilmer is the type of coach that could get that extra bit out of him now. You know, so I really hope we go after him, but I suspect that we're probably looking more for those Spanish players, to be totally honest with you. Although we did have Matt Jordan confirm that they looked at a player from Eastern Europe. So I guess they're not completely sold necessarily on just 100% going after just purely South and Central American players and Mexican players, but also going after, you know, players from other parts of the world too. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a gap in the talent level between the two players for sure. Gio over in Europe is a fantastic midfielder, but his brother has plenty of talent. It's just I feel like Philly did not know how to tap into that, did not know how to really leverage that talent, and so you just ended up with kind of a totally different situation there. And then he was pushing Ilsinho for a while to get some starting minutes, and you know, Ilsinho's a decent player. And so I just don't think there was any chance that it was going to change. Ilsinho or Fabinho? No, it was Ilsinho. All the Brazilians. And they do. And then also, I mean, you know, keep in mind the climate we're in. And, you know, Matt Jordan and Cabrera brought that up as well about the climate and how they want players that can adjust quickly and easily to the climate change here, to the humidity, to the heat. European players are less likely to adapt easily and quickly to that sort of environment, to this sort of environment. I think the Eastern European player they were looking at is probably someone who they intend to strictly play 20, 30 minutes a match, be a super sub at least for the first 6 months of the season. I get that kind of sense from them in terms of how they were looking at that player and who they, you know, my idea of who they had to be looking at for that. It wasn't going to be any name player or anything like that, just somebody that was capable of playing really well. Any other questions or anything? Because we're actually running up right against that hour, which is pretty awesome, actually. Owen Coyle, no. Just no. I don't want Owen Coyle. I don't want Owen Coyle Jr. No. Just no. No. Never, ever again. Once was enough. Do you have any questions, Edson? Now that you've eaten and had a chance to settle into your routine for the night, now that it's 8:15 in the evening.
Well, I mean, if they have any questions for me, then.
Yeah, and if you guys do have questions RGV related, go ahead
or
and
Liga
fill.
MX.
Or Liga, yeah, Liga MX. No, not
Yeah,
Liga
they
MX.
had one.
Well, kind of. It was still Dynamo related. You know, they were talking about not. It wasn't going to happen likely. He was just bringing it up in the context of the Dynamo, and then using it as leverage to be able to say it and not get in trouble.
My question is, when are they going to be talking about roster moves with RGV?
I told you, like 2 months from now.
I know, but
yeah, you
doesn't
need to be
mean
patient,
I'm
my friend. Just be patient; it'll happen. I promise. So Blues fan mentions about Miami FC if it's ever going to happen, and you know, I mean, they've got a couple of new investors. You know, as part of their ownership group now, and these guys are pretty good at what they do. They've got pockets; they can spend money, but and I think they even actually now have a site for their stadium. But the problem is they kind of have to start from square one with their expansion bid, right? Because even though Beckham kind of is guaranteed an expansion slot, as long as he can fill out certain parameters around that, I think his statute of limitations for that has actually expired already. Do you think TJ Kastner goes back to the Toros?
I think he should. I think he will.
Edson thinks he will. And then your thoughts on Luka. Do you want to swap with me since they're starting to ask RGV questions? I'm okay with that. All right, we're going to switch over to Down in the Valley so I can go eat finally. Thanks, guys. Y'all are the best.
All right, so we have a couple of questions. So Henry, first question was, do you think Kastner? Like I said, yes, I hope he does, and I think he should. I think TJ Kastner should go back to the RGV. I felt that in the beginning of this past season, he wasn't given enough minutes, but as the season progressed, TJ Kastner started getting more minutes, and that's always a good thing. And my thoughts on Lucatero is that while I think he is a good prospect, I feel like he's kind of, at least from what I was told about his capabilities in the Dynamo Academy, I really did think like he still needs to show a little bit more of that quality that people say he has. So I'm hoping that this next season under Gerson Echeverri, he might get more opportunity to play on his actual position rather than as a winger. I think that was one of the problems, and I mentioned it last week. Now, one of the problems that Lucatero had was that because our roster was so short with the wingers, that's why he was put in a position that he probably didn't feel 100% comfortable playing with. And you could kind of tell, during the games, like that out on the wing, he kind of like didn't have enough confidence to go up against the defender and try, to dribble around him and things like that. But once he started playing for a couple of times, I know he probably like 2 games, he actually played as a center attacking midfielder, and he looked much better. You started seeing more of his qualities where it comes to passing and the vision that he has. So hopefully, Gerson Echeverri, if you're listening to this,
if you are, hi.
Hopefully you'll be able to see what I saw last season. It says, honestly, probably not getting enough minutes to actually develop. Yes, that is kind of true. And like I said, it doesn't help that he wasn't put in a position that he is comfortable with. So hopefully, but the thing about it is, I mean, in that position you have Eric Bird. So, and he's a really good player. So he's got to fight for those minutes against the Birdman. So which is pretty tough. But I mean, it's all on him. It's all on Lucatero to actually do what he has to do in order to get those minutes.
Are they playing one center mid or 2 center mids? They're playing 2, right?
They play for a while. They were playing with 2 CDMs and an attacking midfielder. You would have Joe Holland, Todd Wharton, and Eric Bird, right there, or you would have Jorginho in the beginning, Charlie Ward.
Okay.
But that's usually how it would go. Usually play with four in the back. Then you would have.
I see Luka more as a true center mid, maybe a little higher up the pitch, attacking mid.
Attacking, yeah, that's what I see of him as well. I'm guessing, like I said, because we didn't have wingers other than Emilio Garcia or Escalante. He had to get other players from other positions to try to fit him into the role. I mean, he had Kyle Murphy as a winger as well. You had Francisco Pungo. You had Lucatero. And I'm trying to think. I think for like a couple of minutes he put in as a winger Victor Garza. Do you think he's able to dig himself out like Memo?
I do.
I think so.
Professional mentality to be able to do it.
Yeah, like I said, it's all on him, and he's got to prove himself to the coach. I think now, I mean, if the Dynamo takes RGV seriously, in trying to fit in an actual system and putting the players around the system, like Coach Cabrera said he wants to implement. I think he will. I think I mean they'll see like that Lucatero shines on this specific spot, and that'll really help him out. Maybe not this year as far as him getting called up to the Dynamo, but or maybe Open Cup. Maybe Open Cup. So, but like also as well, I mean, you still have to deal with Eric Bird, who's hopefully still going to be with RGV. Like I said, they have not announced anything at all, like not even who's being released or anything like that.
I think there's a good chance Charlie Ward will be back there.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I hope Sean just said that he thinks that my boy Charlie Ward might be going back to the Toros. I mean, I was extremely happy for him that he got the MLS contract, but honestly, like the fact that he had very little minutes with the Dynamo might have hurt him. So I mean, he told me himself, like when he played against Cruz Azul in the Dynamo Charities Cup match, he told me that he felt really rusty out there because of the fact that he had not been sent that much to the Toros. And I think one of the things I don't know if it was you or if it was Justin that told me, because that was kind of like my grievances of it. Like, why are these Toros players that were given MLS contracts not sent down to the Valley enough? And he told me, like, well, it's a big risk sending them down. I mean, what happened to Memo Rodriguez? I mean, he got sent down against San Antonio and he got injured. So that's, I think, what the Dynamo just wants to minimize. I mean, even though they are not like first stringers or even like bench players, but just the fact, that they might be there in case something like what happened with AJD and red cards or or other suspensions. You gotta have the depth to have some players out there just in case Coach Cabrera needs them. I know for a while you had on the bench you had Kevin Garcia and you had Charlie Ward in the bench for the Dynamo. So they were close, to getting at least some minutes during the season. You guys have any other questions? I mean, I know. Like I said, it's as far as news from RGV specifically, it's been very slow. There was actually an interview that came out a couple of days ago that I believe I shared the day it came out. It's from a podcast where it's in Spanish, but they had an interview with Gerson Echeverri about his future, what he thinks about what's going to happen with him in RGV. So be sure to check that out as well. Hopefully we'll have something planned in the future. Maybe it might not be Gerson, it might be a player, but we'll really have to make sure like who's staying and who's leaving, because like if you ask me the players that I want for them to stay, it's got to be Kyle Murphy. You got to have Eric Bird, Luca, as well. Callie Brown, he was also offered a USL contract. Justin Bilyeu, of course. Man, I want to say Todd Warden. Even though his natural position is not a center defensive midfielder, he did really good.
Jorginho James.
Of course, yeah, Jorginho James. Because I think he was, yeah. So I said Kyle Murphy. I said Jorginho. I said Todd Warden, Eric Bird, Lucatero, Callie Brown. Obviously, I would just say Victor and Omar Ontiveros. Omar Ontiveros should start getting more minutes. I think he was one of the reasons. Well, him and Justin Bilyeu, why the back line started to look a little bit more, a little bit stronger during the end of the season. So you had in the back, sometimes they would have, Kevin Garcia would come down, and it was him and Omar Ontiveros. Henry Maltez says, how much of a fan base do the Toros have down there? Tough place to compete for favorite team allegiances. It's a very interesting subject. And I've kind of touched upon it before, but I'll go ahead and say, okay, so basically, in RGV, the problem with RGV is that, number one, the marketing is not really great. There's not a lot of marketing. You get the occasional commercials on the radio. You have coverage by Univision Deportes, 15:30 a.m. You would have Telemundo and Univision, kind of covering a little bit on their nightly news about what happens with the Toros. But, it's just like scores, the match scores and things like that. Nothing really extensive. They used to have on Univision Deportes Radio, they would have, their radio show. But as far as the fan base, apparently our average was about 4,000 to 5,000 per game, which isn't bad, but it could be so much better. Now the problem with the Valley is like you mentioned, it's a tough place to compete for an allegiance, because number one, a lot of these players, or not players, a lot of these fans, a lot of these people from the Valley, we already have a favorite team that we root for in Liga MX or in the Premier League or in Europe in general. So like I was Toros fans, since day one. And so when the first game started, I was trying to invite people to come to go see the games. First question that they ask, obviously, it's how are they doing as far as like results? What place in the table they are at? And then they also ask like, oh well, what league do they play? I was like, oh, it's the second division. Whatever. Just due to the fact that it's second division, a lot of people believe that they don't deserve, to have their support, which is sad. I mean, because it's a local team. They're trying their best to be successful, and maybe even if the results aren't there, but at least kind of shows some support. At least try them out once. Just don't just throw them down the drain just because they're in the second division. Another problem that happens with the RGV is that.
Are we calling them the RGV?
No, I said the RGV with the RGV.
The RGV? Is that what we're calling them? I'm just asking.
As it
like the MLS debate?
No, like the region, not the team.
Okay.
Yes, the Rio Grande Valley. Another problem with the Rio Grande Valley with the fans is that, like I said, it was they have the favorite Liga MX teams, and they tend to be very, I don't want to say bandwagonish, but yes, bandwagonish, because how is it in comparison to the Vipers? I'll get to that right there.
They're winning. That's the comparison.
But the thing about it is, it's like, I believe that the Vipers have, this past season, they celebrated their 10th season in the G League. Mm-hmm. And the Toros, it's barely their second season. Yep. So the Vipers, even though it's the same organization, the Vipers and the Toros, the Vipers have a head start, and they've been more successful, in the G League. I believe they have won the league 2 times, if I'm not mistaken. So that helps them out. Brian and I work hard to get folks out to see the Dutch Lions too. Great soccer in the north side, and people are just like meh. Yeah, that's the problem with lower division. They because everybody wants to root for the winner. So obviously, a lot of times with the winner, like it's usually like, it's not like in the Great Britain. It's not like in Great Britain or in Europe where fans grow or not grow, but they love their local team.
Well, but their local team has been there for 50 or 60 years. I mean,
exactly.
50
so
to 60
it becomes like tradition. It's tradition.
There's history. There's
in history.
history with these USL clubs
Yeah.
for the most part.
And the thing about it is, like, how do most of these teams in Europe, how did they start? A lot of times it was just like a regular, like a pub, like guys at the pub, or
it was a pub club. It was a pub team, and they won a tournament, and they slowly started building up a roster of signed players, and
yeah. And that's a problem here with the United States, because since it's a franchise thing, you know, it's like pretty much just starts like from one day to the next, like, oh no, we have a soccer team now. So it's hard to build that tradition. It's hard to build that love for a team right away. But that's why you have a lot of these people who are support local kind of people. Like my buddy Bobby, yeah, he's one of those that says like, well, I support local. Like I know not a couple of others that are actually Frisco fans, and my friend who was there at the Seattle game, Seattle fans, you know, they support the Toros because it's local, even though they're the affiliate of the Dynamo. You know, so that's a problem. That's a problem with the RGV. There are not enough people that have the mentality of supporting local, rather than like oh, I'm gonna support the team I root for in Mexico or in Europe, and that's about it, because they're not, these guys are not at the level, but yet there they are. Every time the Toros lose, they're there commenting on the comment section like, oh, these guys suck. Why don't you just get more Mexicans to play? Like, why is it a bunch of you know, the typical. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, you diss the team, but yet you think you're good enough, or you have the audacity to want to say like what they should do. I think I bit my tongue.
Ow.
But okay.
Butters.
No, it's a figure of speech in Mexico. Like when you say something like kind of being like hypocritical about it, so you're like,
it's like tongue in cheek here. We say tongue in cheek, it's the same thing.
So, but yeah, good. That's a good thing that you're doing, Darby. You know, trying to support, you know, local, because that's what gets the U.S. Soccer, you know, to grow. It's not just, you can't rely 100% on MLS. You can't rely 100% on NASL or the USL. You gotta support NPSL. You gotta support the amateur leagues. I mean, you have like Christos,
You need to support
the PDL,
and MASL, and
yeah, whatever
leagues, and,
yeah, whatever you have. Es más, support, you know, your local, your local academies.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
You know, try to maybe yes, it might be some expensive, you know, to put in your team, you know, but once you're there, you know, be there with your to your kids' games. Show them support. Show them that you really do care, that they learn the ability. Be good sportsmanship. You know, have some good sportsmanship. Don't be those that like they want to get him fight with the refs, or they want to get him fight with the coach because they didn't put in their son or their daughter in. You know, that doesn't help. So, I mean, you guys have any other comments about that? You know, any other questions? Sean?
I don't have any.
Not even about academies? Because that might actually, we keep on saying that we're going to be doing that little round table thing, but
well, we are. It's just we have to wait for Justin and Josh to not be working.
That is true. Big shout out to them once again, because it is extremely difficult. Yes, Geiger still sucks. That's a given. That's about as given as the sky is going to be blue, or that there's going to be rain in Houston.
Eventually, at some point, there will be.
And during the year, but you know. Mm-hmm. But. Man, this whole Geiger thing, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that including myself, that say that Geiger sucks. That that Geiger has been part of the problem as to why the national team has stagnated. Why the MLS probably hasn't gone. Hasn't. Because they say like, oh well, all he cares about is the money. Like with this whole Nashville thing.
I think you're thinking of somebody else. He's talking
Galati.
about Mark Geiger, the referee.
Oh.
You're thinking of Don Garber.
They start with a G, okay? I had a long day. Okay.
No, it's fine. That's why I was like, wait a second.
Okay, so Mark Geiger, the referee, yes, he sucks. Actually, almost all. No, scratch that. All of the pro sucks. I have not seen refereeing this bad, and I thought Liga MX was bad. No. Trust me. I think I've seen better refereeing at a Sunday league, and that's saying something.
I have seen better refereeing in indoors. I'm just saying, and I mean these guys they're not even really paid to do it. They're like $25.
Yeah. I mean it's ridiculous how you would assume that okay, you're working, your job, your profession is being a referee.
Well, see, the problem with pro is there's no accountability. The people who are reviewing these incidents and things like that, and these calls and these wrong calls, they're part of pro. Mm-hmm. They're not independent like they want to claim, and there's only 3 of them. It's not like we're talking about an entire group or there's 3 of them that review it, and out of the 3, 2 of them are either previous pro referees or they've been part of pro in some other way, shape, or form.
So they're
it's people with an agenda.
Yeah, so they're never gonna admit that they're wrong. No. So I think that's.
If they admit they're wrong, what happens? Slap on the wrist. You're now 4th official for a match. Then you're back to being the center official for the next match after that.
Yeah, I mean,
there's, like I said, no accountability, 0 accountability. It's the same thing at the top of USSF. There's no accountability.
I think, man, I mean, it sucks, seeing the reality of this. Yeah. But I mean, I fear that's the problem, or that's the risk of an organization where they're too comfortable with what they're doing right now, that they're bound to lose accountability or not have accountability in the first place. And really, unless the thing about it is, correct me if I'm wrong, Pro Referees is the only organization, referee organization for pro levels, right?
No, there is another one. They actually have one in England that's a different organization. Similar type of thing.
No. I'm talking about in the United States.
Yes, there's not really another. I mean, you can become a referee, but it's not. If you're not part of pro, you're not going to referee
in the big leagues.
Yeah, I don't think NASL uses pro refs
because USL uses pro refs as well.
Well, yeah, but it's because they're part of the USSF.
Yeah.
I want to say pretty solidly that NASL does not use pro referees, but I could be wrong on that. They could be pro.
No, I don't think so. I mean, why would they? They're trying to fight against USSF so much. Why would they use something that is part of? You can say so involved with.
They may not have a choice because it might have been part of their agreement to become a Division II to begin with.
I mean that is true. I will have to check it. Yeah.
Come back on that.
But I mean, what can we do? Our hands are tied. I feel like our hands are tied in this system, because unless there's a major reform, not only in pro but in USSF in general, unless there's a big shakeup, where someone who is going to, their main focus is going to be the sport and not the money, which is hard nowadays. There might be people that say like, oh no, like deep down inside, once they're in the position, they're gonna do what benefits them the most, or when it benefits their stockholders.
Absolutely.
So we can pressure, but then again, no. I mean, how much has MLS fans pressured with this whole thing with Save the Crew? Almost all of the MLS teams, fans from all MLS teams, have put up banners during the game saying hashtag Save the Crew.
It's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, have written emails to Garber, to Precourt. I think somebody actually had released the actual mailing address for Garber, but nothing's happening. Why? Because they don't care. They don't care about us. I mean, we're putting in money by buying the product, by going to the games, but we're not really investing in the league. So it's like any other business, 9 times out of 10, the person that they're gonna be listening to, or like who the CEO is going to be listening to, are going to be the investors, and then I'm not even going to talk about that. I was going to say about politics as well, but Sean, do you have any?
You've gotten totally off track. Good job. No, I don't have anything else. I think you're good to wrap it up.
So, unless y'all have some more questions, I think this will be it for today's Dynamo Power Hour Q&A with Sean Ringrose.
Edson Ochoa.
Featuring Edson Ochoa.
And RGV Down in the Valley Power Hour.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, I think this is going to be it for 2017.
Yeah, I don't expect to do one next week for sure.
Yeah, because next week I got to prepare for my vacation, and then the 3rd I'm actually not going to be here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's okay. We'll go on without you.
Oh, okay. Nah,
We've
it's
already
fine.
planned.
Yeah, but so there's not, unless something major happens, which I highly doubt because of the it's Christmas and New Year's. Nothing's going to happen as far as signings or anything.
You're telling yourself that.
I really want something to.
Oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the best Christmas present they could give us.
Yeah, but no. I mean, but unless something happens, this is going to wrap up Down in the Valley for 2017. I just want to take the time to really say thanks to every one of you who have been watching this segment. Even back when it was a 15-minute segment with Carson on the Peel.
Blossom into its own show.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm really happy, and I'm really grateful for the support that we've been getting here at the Peel, whether it's the Peel, the regular show, or the occasional Down in the Valley. So for 2018, expect some more things.
Yeah.
Bigger and better, and more on a more consistent schedule as well with Down in the Valley, especially now as the season progresses. And hopefully y'all will still be there, supporting me.
And no, they're all gonna leave. They're like,
Yeah.
We skipped a week, we're done.
Hey, they do that. They do that with my YouTube channel.
It happens, man.
Yeah, but oh well. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. Sean, thanks y'all as well.
Absolutely, I give my salute.
And hope to see. And if we don't see you again, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and
Hit us up on Twitter.
and a Happy New Year. And you can find us on Twitter at the Peel 2005, the Peel 05. On Facebook, the Peel 2005.
That's right.
Obviously,
Also,
since you're what.
RGV,
Yeah, down in the RGV as well on Twitter. On Instagram, there is RGVFC fans, so also follow them as well. What else we got? ThePeelLive.com.
Yeah.
Check us out on our website, ThePeelLive.com. Hopefully, we can start adding more content into the website for y'all to enjoy.
And 2018 is the year of KTXF.
Of course,
Hopefully,
yeah. So be sure to download the TuneIn app and find KTXF the real. DB the real. Part of the
Texas Sports Review Network. Media Network.
There we go. So keep on supporting us, and hopefully next year we'll be able to be part of the Dynamo Media Game.
Yes, and support by sharing and subscribing to our
click
YouTube page.
So click down there, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe to the Peel.
You get the notifications when we go live.
Yeah, that's one of the perks of being a subscriber.
Absolutely.
We don't give you money, but you get the alerts. You get the video.
Giveaways next year. There could be a giveaway or two.
Thank you, Henry. We'll keep on giving it 110% on this podcast. I mean, there's still a long way to go, but we're getting there.
We are. I mean, this time last year we weren't even in the picture.
Okay.
So I mean, it's grown tremendously for sure. So, I really do appreciate it, guys, and. Like he said, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we will see you guys. I will see you guys on January 3rd. He will see you on January 10th.
Exactly. Hopefully.
Or actually maybe a little sooner, because once you get back, you have a Down in the Valley segment you probably need to do.
Something tells me you know something.
I'm not saying anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But if I did know something, it seems like January, I don't know, 5th or 6th might be a good day. I don't know. Just saying.
He knows something. I'll try to see what I can get out of him right now.
Put you on the spot.
But thank you all once again, and enjoy your night, and forever orange.
Forever orange.
And we are Toros. Have a good night.
Somos Toros. Hopefully this will actually stop the thing. I don't know. We'll find out, won't we?